Go. Good evening, KZFR. This is Right On Air, and I am your host, Kevin Cook. And I have a special guest with us today, Gayle Kimball. What's on your mind?
Well, you're on my mind, Kevin, and I wondered why you started this show, how you got the idea, and what's the most fun part of doing Writing on Air.
Okay, well, I realized that with this second start that we did here, because we had to re-record this, find Gayle's stuff at www.gaylekimball.info. We'll come back and circle around to that. But for this show, I started in 2016, moved up here on the first day of 2017. And the way I've kind of painted it around for people is that this is the picture frame, and people can bring whatever they want to the picture. So when I first moved up here, I was looking around for community events, and I ended up finding, I think I found KZFR via Facebook group or something. And I was a big fan of Frasier growing up, and I went, I could be on radio, and it's free, volunteer, and all I have to do is help out with community events. That sounds awesome. And so I applied and did the program training and got in, and it was fantastic. I haven't looked back since.
Great.
Yeah.
I do my show the second Thursday of each month, Ask Dr. Gayle, and I agree it's fun. The only thing that's odd about it is you have no idea if anyone is listening to you.
Yeah, I've had every now and then, rare occasions. I've done the show since mid of 2017, I think. Every now and then I'll get a call after the show of someone saying, hey, that was cool. But it's like every 8 months, maybe I get one. So I don't know. I hope people are listening out there. If you are, somehow dialogue with us. It's always fun to hear. It gives us some motivation that, people are listening.
And what you want to talk about or hear on the shows, yeah.
Yes.
So what I'm focusing on in this half hour is reality. What is reality? And I thought I'd start with a book that I wrote for kids.
Oh, cool.
Called Answers to Kids' Deep Questions in Photos. Wow. And I have a grandson who's 11, so he was part of the motivation of doing this. So the book is all photographs, mostly that I took, and I'll give you a sample. Kids want to know, what is God? That's like the basis of reality.
Big question.
So I said, God is patterns in the universe. Look for the spiral in the shell. Here we have the spiral in the shell. The rose is in a spiral, the flower. Our DNA molecules, the M74 galaxy, home to about 100 billion stars, a little smaller than our Milky Way galaxy. Water also spirals down a drain. What other patterns do you see? How do you define God? I think God is intelligence, order, lawfulness, gravity, the things that make the universe work. And I also said God is love. And I have a picture of my niece at her wedding and a friend with her little boy. And then what I hear from kids, what is happiness and how can I be happier? And so here we have a picture of a glass half full and a picture that my grandson painted when he was in second grade of kids sharing. So what I write is happiness is a state of mind that can affect your emotions and well-being. And you can decide what to think. I really think that's the key.
Yeah.
When you look at the glass, we have a picture of the glass, is it half full or half empty? Learn to think of things in a positive way, replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. And I have a CD called Kids Mind Power that teaches kids all kinds of fun visualizations to have power over their lives. When we help others or thank them for their kindness, we spread happiness. Helping others, like the 6-year-old who drew a picture of a classmate lending scissors to a friend. Learning is enjoyable, that's fun, that makes us happy, as is achieving a goal. Spending time with people and pets you love can be fun. What else makes you happy or makes you smile? I'm going to ask you that, Kevin.
Oh, me? Really, anytime I'm outside.
Yeah.
I don't mind the weather. If it's rainy and thunderstormy, that's better. I actually prefer that. If it's sunny and windy outside, I like that. Being outside on a bike and hiking, that's my go-to. Yeah.
For me, I would say dancing, hiking, family,
Yes.
eating sweets.
That's a big one.
I confess. Okay, another question in this book, which is Answers to Kids' Deep Questions in Photos, is Why is there suffering and poverty? And I have a picture that I took of a homeless family sleeping on a mattress on the sidewalk in Rio de Janeiro. When I was there, I got to see the favelas, the slums, bullet holes in the walls, tiny little alleys, wires unsafe everywhere. The woman, this is not in the book, I'm just telling Kevin.
Yeah.
The alleyways were so full with putrid water that the woman who was showing me around had staph infections on her calves from walking in that stuff. Why does war happen so often, like we're experiencing right now in Ukraine? See what you think of this answer. Humans have only been on the planet for about 300 to 400,000 years, which seems like a long time, but the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. And you can see how that's portrayed in a YouTube video called An Evolutionary History of Life on Earth in 5 Minutes. If we look at the history of Earth as a 24-hour clock, humans have only been here a few seconds. We only developed language about 50,000 years ago, as explained by the Khan Academy, which is online, started out teaching kids math. We're still learning how to be unselfish and peaceful. Look at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History chart to see how new humans are in history. That's amazing, only 50,000 years of language.
And people don't often really conceptualize that biology moves a lot faster than ideologies and language patterns. They take a lot longer to kind of stick. Biology, I mean, you can get a tumor at any point in your life, really, it just can happen. But ideologies and learning things and the process of learning, we're ahead of other species only because we record our knowledge. Other species have to do that via verbalization somehow. They don't have recordings. So that's the only way.
And their genetics.
And their genetics, yes. So that's why we're ahead. I love that. That was a beautiful response for that.
Then I'm going to read from Calm, How to Thrive in Challenging Times.
Oh, cool.
And I also did a partner book with this for parents, Calm Parents and Children. And the interesting thing about reality is that it's not what we think it is. Quantum mechanics, quantum physics teaches there's no time, no space in the quantum world of the tiny, tiny things. So what that means is we can affect with our thoughts and our emotions in a way that's really incredible. So I think we need to do more to teach kids how to use their thought patterns and their intention for good. So here's some evidence that mind influences matter, and this is from Calm. I think this is so profound. People with multiple personalities have different allergies, eyeglass prescriptions, physical ailments, depending on which personality is dominant. That's really striking.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, one alter, they call the subpersonality, could need glasses. The other alter doesn't. One alter could have diabetes, the other not.
Wow.
So that, to me, that alone is proof how much our personality, our thought patterns, influences matter.
Wow, that is beautiful. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's amazing. 1/3 to 40% of patients who take sugar pill placebos and who think they may be ingesting medication get better because of their belief. For example, in a test of Uprima, a drug to help men get an erection, a sugar pill worked for 1/3 of men compared to 47% who took the drug.
Wow.
And now there's a professor at Harvard named Ted Kapachuk, and he found out that even if you know it's a placebo, you get better.
Still has a...
The doctor will tell you, this sugar pill has helped some people get better.
Wow.
And then we don't know if it's like, do you need to have the white coat doctor giving you the pill?
Wow. Perception is an intense subject.
Right.
Ah.
And then under hypnosis, the hypnotherapist can tell you, I am putting a burning cigarette on your wrist, and puts a pencil point and your body gets a blister.
Wow. I have one to add on after that. Go ahead.
Go ahead and add it.
Oh, so my father works in, is a firefighter, he's an engineer, and he's told me some pretty gruesome stories throughout my childhood of just accidents he's had to respond to. And he said he's seen someone who's had an amputated limb, he's watched the person look at it, panic, and then watch the vein pull back in and close off the artery. Sorry. So just from a state of shock, your body will naturally and or perceptually, it's kind of hard to tell which one that's coming from, lock itself off.
Wow.
There's probably a lot more that goes into that. I don't know if that's ubiquitous for everyone there, but in some situations it will do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Let's see. Psychiatrist Milton Erickson hypnotized several young women who, despite hormone injections, were completely flat-chested. They all grew breasts within 2 months, although they had no memories of his suggestion.
Wow.
Successful athletes visualize and enhance their performance without moving a muscle. A university study found that people who just imagine doing exercises increase the strength in their little fingers by 16%. So we know thoughts have power. So let me give you a few visualizations from Calm, so you can think about how to deal with stress, because so many of us are stressed nowadays. This is from the HeartMath Institute, and by the way, they believe that the Earth's electromagnetic field influences us, and we influence it.
Can I add on to that real quick? So I listened to a guy named Anton Petrov. Please, anyone who hears that name, go Google him or search him on YouTube. And he does a lot of scientific videos of just research of what is coming out day to day. And he does usually a daily video. One that a research paper that came across his table that he discussed was on how the electromagnetic field is augmenting evolution throughout this one type of bacterial species. And it's totally, completely fun.
Is it like a stored memory where the information is stored and accumulated and adds on to itself?
It's one that when I was listening to it, I was in some heavy traffic, so I missed a lot of the details on it. I need to go back and listen to it again. I'm not sure, but it's one of his more recent ones for anyone who's listening to this conversation on March 21st, 2022. Check out Anton Petrov's, and you can look at the magnetosphere affecting evolution and biology, but it's completely fundamentally supported. We're finding lots of evidence right now that it's changing major alterations in how things propagate through time.
Wow. And they say that we influence it as well, so it's a dual feedback system.
That's going to be, in my non-prophetic vision, that'll be part 2 of what the research starts coming out to show, is that there's maybe some dialogue back and forth somehow. We don't know everything for sure. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
The HeartMath people have an app where they can measure what happens when a whole lot of people are doing a meditation, and they can somehow see the effect with this app on people's phones.
Similar to like the global consciousness theory.
It is global consciousness.
Okay, same. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
And do you know about Princeton did a study with rings with global consciousness?
No.
Oh, this is incredible. This is in the category of mind affects matter. They have rings, which are random number generators or random event generators, and they put them all around the world. They spit out zeros and ones randomly, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And when the whole world is thinking a unified thought, they become coherent and change.
Yes. Okay, I did hear a little bit about that one. I didn't know it was called that, but yes, I'd heard about that study. Absolutely fundamental change in how we think. Should be, at least.
Yes, and like a big event was the bombing of World Trade Towers. And the interesting thing is they started going out of randomness 2 or 3 hours before the first plane hit.
I heard about that one. Yes, there was some consistency before, and I think it was after too. It continued for a bit and then died off.
Because people are still thinking about it. Yeah. But then the other interesting thing about the rings is an event like around the world, soccer is huge. So you would think the international soccer matches would be a big effect on the rings, but they're not. Can you imagine why?
I'm not sure.
Because you have Argentina versus Italy, and they oppose each other.
Wow, okay. Huh. That's an interesting take in itself right there. Sorry, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, we're having such a good time.
Yeah, I have to dive down some of these rabbit holes for sure.
Yeah, right. So HeartMath has a freeze framer to reduce stress. So if you're feeling stress, you think about the stress like a video, and you put it on pause. So you just set the intention, my stress, whatever it is on pause. And then you shift your focus to your heart, And you imagine like you're breathing slowly and deeply through your heart for at least 10 seconds. And then you keep your awareness there rather than on the problem. And then you remember a positive time when you felt deep love, caring, forgiveness, appreciation, and experience that feeling. You don't visualize, because they said that takes you into your head. You just sense and feel that time when you felt deep appreciation or whatever. The pleasant memory causes the heart rate to move to coherent rhythm. And then, using your intuition and common sense, ask your heart what would be in a more effective response to the situation that will reduce stress. And then you listen to it.
And those patterns too are completely proven to lower cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. So
the long exhalations, and they calm the nervous system.
Yeah.
Well,
so this is not. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's all do that right now. So nice deep breath. And exhale for as long as you could keep a little feather up. And then Gay Hendricks is a breathing expert, and he said not breathing resets the energy field. So you breathe, exhale, don't breathe, and then breathe.
Wow. Put some pattern, a little bit more of a pattern to it. Interesting.
Right. Okay. Then I did a trilogy where I interviewed 65 visionary scientists. And thank you. And so the 3 books are The Mysteries of Reality, Dialogues with Visionary Scientists, Mysteries of Knowledge Beyond Our Senses, and Mysteries of Healing, Dialogues with Doctors and Scientists. And this was really fascinating because these are mostly PhD, some bench, some theoretical scientists, professors, doctors, and they have a lot of courage because they go against the dominant paradigm, which is materialist, that the only thing that's real is material.
Physical world, yeah.
This. And what they said is no, consciousness is the ground of all reality. Material follows after consciousness. So let me read a little bit from The Mysteries of Reality. Reality is not what we think it is. That's what I learned from the visionary scientists. Common sense erroneously tells us that we live in a solid material world, that atoms are like billiard balls with definite locations and time in a one-directional arrow. This is all false. As physicist Max Planck said in 1931, I've spent my entire life studying atoms and molecules, and I'm here to tell you they don't exist.
Wow.
They're not matter.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're made of atoms and molecules, so what does that make us? He explained in his book, The New Science, that there's no matter as such because atoms vibrate and are held together by a force that indicates a conscious and intelligent mind. So that's how I define God. This mind is a matrix of all matter, to go back to our Answers to Kids' Deep Questions book.
Yeah.
The materialist belief is that all information comes from the physical senses via the brain, although many people experience ESP, telepathy, a precognitive dream or intuition, awareness of being stared at from behind, a dramatic near-death experience that reveals other dimensions. Like one of the people in the book is a best-selling author named Eben Alexander, and he was a conventional Harvard cardiologist, big shot professor, materialist kind of guy, and he was in a coma, brain dead, for I think 5 days. And in that period, he had all kinds of visionary experiences, and his brain was dead. He said his brain had turned to pus, but he was able to gradually remember all that he experienced, or a lot of what he experienced in that near-death state.
Wow.
And what he saw was that there are many dimensions, and that God is love.
Beautiful.
Animals also have these abilities. There's a British scientist named Rupert Sheldrake, and his research on dogs is they will be aware of when their person is coming home, even if it's not at a routine time. Do you have a dog like that, or
I
have
have a
you?
cat.
What does it do?
Oh, it's aware of where I'm at any given moment.
How do you know?
It'll follow me. It also, the way I see it, is it's aware of where my perception is, and it will try to move when my perception is not localized on it, and so it will appear as if it's just appearing in random areas. But I finally figured that little trick out a while ago, and so now I'll track him, but if I catch him in that, he panics. But he usually, even if the window is closed and I've been as quiet as I can, he always is at the door with no consistency to my time of arrival. None. I can show up at any point and he's there, unless he's asleep. But aside from that, if he's awake, he's usually meets me at the door.
You would love to read Rupert Sheldrake. Speaking of cats, a friend of mine had a 20-year-old cat with kidney failure, and he wouldn't die. He needed to. He was miserable. But I do clairvoyant and healing work, and we helped him move on, pass on. And I felt when he did, it was a beautiful, loving experience of him giving up and moving on. Oh, this was really unusual. I had no idea how animals incarnate, but what I saw is this cat was experimenting with a dog body and walking with dog legs and what that felt like when he was on the other side.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
just feel out what's going on over there. Cool.
Yeah. The materialist model of science has, of course, produced a great deal, as evidenced in technologies that can send a person to the moon. But it hasn't succeeded in learning much about our physical surroundings. Over 90% of the universe is invisible dark energy, dark matter that repels gravity. And scientists don't know very much about this.
Do you know why it's called dark matter?
Why?
Because we don't know what it is. The term dark matter is a placeholder for what we're not understanding. We know that there is something there because it occupies some sort of space, but we do not know what it is or what it's composed of. So we call it dark, hard to see matter.
It's humbling. People are really arrogant, but if they really thought about what we don't know, they wouldn't be so arrogant.
Yes.
Various theories try to explain gravity, but none are definitive. The universe that we understand is 5%, the world of matter. And even then, we've just seen that atoms aren't really matter.
No.
And then some quantum physicists believe that there are multi-universes, and they believe that atoms exist in many different possible potentialities before they manifest because they're observed or thought about or whatever. We should be humble and not say, oh, I don't believe in the paranormal because everything is material, because it's not.
I came out of this world being awestruck by just having sense, really. Having sensation, period, was just magnifying and magnificent as a little tiny child for me. And I don't know why people lose that.
Does your work with kids who have visual challenges enhance that appreciation?
Oh yeah, astronomically. What's the other word for it? Exponentially. Yeah.
And do they develop other abilities or senses to kind of compensate?
I've seen on more than one occasion how brains adapt lack of visual information to auditory, and then you begin to get sensory auditory experiences that have definition and shape, and similar to how our eyes define things like a microphone, your ear will start to be able to define shape in the environment. Echolocation is what it's commonly called. But I've seen it more than on many occasions. There's lots of TED Talks about it. A guy named Daniel Kish has spoken about it. He's blind and he teaches echolocation. His book is amazing if you get a chance to read it.
So are you saying that I can, if I'm blind, I can almost hear where the door is?
Yeah, definitively.
Wow.
And even if the light switch is next to it or not, it can be that much. It's unknown how fine detail it becomes with auditory because we don't really have a good way of testing that. It's largely said that it's not as fine detail, but there are situations where I've seen students and other people walk around who have had visual impairments, and it's fascinating how well they're able to navigate with just sound.
Can that be taught?
Mm-hmm. To visual people as well.
Ah.
It might not fully develop to a fully appreciative echolocation sense because vision still takes up so much processing neuron space, but you will refine auditory techniques and it'll become a little bit sharper for you if you were to start practicing echolocation tactics, like closing your eyes and listening to how things echo.
Have you tried?
Often,
What do you come up with?
Not consistently, I will say. So I've tried it, but it's consistency that requires results. Yeah, practice requires results. But you do start to notice immediately when and if there is something in proximity to you. So a wall, for example, is kind of the easiest thing to notify. And then if you want to challenge yourself further, go to a wall and then go to a corner of a wall and see how the sound changes. So a flat wall, speak to that when your eyes are closed and see if there's any difference, get closer to it, and then change yourself or have someone guide you over to a corner of a wall and see how the sound changes. And you can start to hear how it funnels back and reverberates, just for like a little, wet your lips a little bit there with that one. Real interesting.
So there actually is a physical sound?
Yeah, so the way I describe it to my students is it sounds as if you are inside of maybe a box. Things get closer, you start to, funneling, I use the term funneling. It sounds like you're in a funnel because things start to reverberate closer. And there's a lot of things you can play with being outside and hearing how, and if you're walking down a narrow enclosed hallway and then you come out into something that is no longer narrow and enclosed, you get a sense of openness because the sound suddenly dissipates and doesn't reverberate back.
Wow.
Things like that. Yeah, totally playable. You can Google it on YouTube. People have hundreds of videos teaching more than what I have. Yeah.
How interesting. Well, we're both learning.
Yeah.
Since we don't have a lot of time left, is there anything that's come up for you that you want to delve into a little bit?
Well, first off, it's been fantastic having you on the show. I hope it was
Likewise.
as enjoyable for you as it was for me.
Certainly. I like dialogue.
Me too. And then before I forget, you can find all of Gayle Kimball's work at www.gaylekimble.info. And that is www.gaylekimble.info. Author of 20 plus books. Any other places they can find it?
Well, the big company that we don't want to support because goes all its
Go
money
to her
space.
website. Go to her website and support healthy, happy people that are sharing healthy, happy things. Usually I ask people, and I think we had talked a little bit about this, and this is 3 minutes, so play with it however much you want. But for anyone who is trying to get into writing, or for someone who's been there a while and feels stuck, what advice would you give them after having written a lot of books?
I really think it's important to get a lot of critiques. So I always have friends, copywriters, people that write well, critique my work. So I think my work has gotten better by writing and having people say, that sentence is too long, it's too complex, make it shorter, don't have so many compound sentences, or whatever. So it's like any skill, it takes practice and it takes having criticism. You're not going to be a good tennis player if the coach doesn't say, do the left, use your hands. Right. I write about what I want to learn about, what I'm curious about. So that motivates me.
Pulls you along.
It pulls me along. But I wouldn't be able to write fiction.
Oh, okay.
I can't, I'm not that imaginative that I could create a whole story. I think really my thinking is get to the heart of it, get to the central point, be concise, be clear, get to it. And that's not what a good fiction book is about.
Yeah.
I would say they had a love affair, they had troubles, they got back together, they got married and lived happily ever after. It would be a paragraph.
We'll give you pieces of it to write at a time. We'll collaborate at something. Oh, cool. Well, let me think.
What do you write?
My main bulk of things that I write, I like to write poetry. Usually sensory poetry, things I've thought of. I have a very hidden deep down in the web, a blog post somewhere that I write. Usually if I'm having a thought about something ideological or metaphorical, I'll write it down where I'm at with that thought. And then 10 years later, I'll go back and see where I was and see what I've learned at that point. I like to write largely for myself.
Is that blog public?
Definitely not. Definitely not, and under a different name, so no one can find it. But poetry, I do like to get into fiction. That's kind of later in my future. I feel like I'm still kind of developing some things